Intro. Most people believe mental strength is about gritting your teeth, pushing harder, or pretending you don't feel pain. But the Stoics knew something far deeper, secrets that were rarely written down. Often hidden in the daily practices of emperors, slaves, and philosophers alike. These were not abstract theories. They were training grounds for the mind, ways of toughening the soul against the chaos of life. Imagine living in ancient Rome, surrounded by wars, plagues, political betrayal, and sudden loss. The Stoics survived not because life was easy, but because they discovered how to become unshakable when everything else collapsed. And here's the truth: those ancient exercises still work today. They can help you face anxiety, heartbreak, financial uncertainty, and even the quiet loneliness we all carry inside. This video will reveal 10 Stoic secrets to mental strength you were never taught, powerful practices that most schools, workplaces, and even modern self-help books ignore. These secrets aren't just about surviving. They're about living with calm clarity, with courage, and with unbreakable resilience no matter what storms come your way. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers. Each week, we bring you Stoic wisdom and ancient insights that cut through the noise of modern life and guide you back to strength, clarity, and peace. Hit that subscribe button now, because the first secret begins in just a moment. And it may change the way you see your life forever. 1. The power of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics believed that real strength doesn't come from luxury or comfort. It comes from training yourself to endure what others avoid. Seneca would often eat the simplest food, wear rough clothing, and sleep on the ground, not because he had to, but because he wanted to remind himself, "Is this what I feared?" By practicing discomfort voluntarily, he stripped fear of its power. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor, wrote about the need to harden the body and mind through simple living. Even Epictetus, once a slave, urged his students to rehearse poverty and hardship, not out of self-punishment, but to build a fortress inside themselves that no circumstance could destroy. Think about how we live today. Every convenience is at our fingertips: food delivered in minutes, climate-controlled homes, entertainment on demand, and yet, many of us feel weaker, more anxious, more dependent than ever. The Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort is a radical antidote to this dependency. It's not about denying yourself joy, it's about teaching your mind that comfort is optional, and survival is always possible. Skip a meal, take a cold shower, walk instead of driving, sleep on the floor once in a while. These small acts remind you that you are stronger than you think. When real hardship comes, and it always does, you won't collapse in fear. You'll already know that discomfort is not the end of you. It is the beginning of your strength. 2. The art of negative visualization. The Stoics practiced something that might sound dark at first. They imagined losing everything they loved. Seneca urged his friends to picture their children dying, their fortunes crumbling, even their own health failing. Marcus Aurelius would write at dawn about how the people he met might betray him, insult him, or leave him. Why? Not to depress themselves, but to prepare their hearts. This practice, called negative visualization, wasn't about pessimism, it was about gratitude and resilience. By imagining loss in advance, the Stoics trained their minds to face reality with calm. If the worst never came, they had already deepened their appreciation for what they still had. And if it did come, they were not shattered, they were ready. Think about modern life. We scroll through social media, constantly comparing, constantly expecting more. But when was the last time you paused and thought, what if this person I love wasn't here tomorrow? What if this comfort disappeared? That simple thought transforms an ordinary morning coffee into a sacred ritual, a hug into a priceless memory. Negative visualization doesn't make you weaker, it makes you unbreakable. When you accept that everything is temporary, you stop clinging, and you start living. Instead of being crushed by a loss, you rise with gratitude for every fragile moment you're given. That's the hidden power the Stoics discovered. When you imagine the worst, you learn to love the present even more. 3. Control the controllables. One of the most liberating Stoic lessons is the dichotomy of control, understanding what belongs to you and what never will. Epictetus said it bluntly, some things are up to us, and some are not. Your thoughts, your choices, your actions, those are yours. The weather, other people's opinions, the economy, even the outcome of your efforts, those are not. Most of our suffering comes from confusing the two. We rage when someone cuts us off in traffic. We worry endlessly about what others think. We crumble when events don't bend to our will. But the Stoics trained themselves to pause and ask, is this within my control? Or outside of it? If outside, then release it. If within, then act with courage and clarity. Think about how much mental energy you've lost trying to fix what isn't yours. The market falls, a friend betrays you, the weather ruins your plans. None of these are within your command. But how you respond, that belongs entirely to you. That's your fortress. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. It's deceptively simple, but revolutionary. Imagine how different life feels when you stop demanding the world obey you, and instead master the one realm you truly command, yourself. Control the controllables, and suddenly, you are never powerless again. 4. The silent fortress. The Stoics understood that silence was not emptiness, it was strength. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by the noise of an empire, often reminded himself to retreat inward, to that inner citadel, where no insult, no chaos, no loss could penetrate. It was a fortress built not of stone, but of stillness. In silence, the Stoics found clarity. Words of anger lose their power when you refuse to echo them. The sting of an insult fades when you meet it with calm. And the weight of the world feels lighter when you step back and remind yourself, this cannot touch my soul unless I let it. Think about modern life. Notifications buzzing, voices shouting, opinions colliding. Most people drown in the noise. But the silent fortress is always available. You build it each time you pause before reacting. Each time you sit with your thoughts instead of fleeing them. Each time you choose reflection over retaliation. Seneca wrote that silence sharpens the mind, the way a whetstone sharpens a blade. In quiet moments, you remember what matters. In stillness, you recover your strength. And when the world storms against you, you carry an unshakable refuge inside. That is the silent fortress, the discipline of holding peace within, even when the world outside is falling apart. 5. The discipline of desire. The Stoics taught that freedom is not found in chasing every desire but in mastering them. Epictetus warned that the man who cannot control his wants is more enslaved than one in chains. A slave may be bound by iron, but the undisciplined are bound by endless craving. Seneca often reminded himself to ask, do I really need this? Or do I just want it? That simple question was a shield against excess. Marcus Aurelius, living in palaces, reminded himself daily that silk sheets and golden plates added nothing to his soul. Comfort could be enjoyed, but never depended upon. Look around our modern world. Advertisements scream at us. Apps are designed to keep us scrolling. Companies profit from our inability to say, enough. The result? Restlessness, debt, emptiness. The Stoics' answer was discipline, not repression, but freedom. By choosing when to say yes and when to say no, they reclaimed control over their own lives. Imagine skipping the impulse purchase, resisting the late-night craving, or turning down an empty distraction. Each act is not deprivation, it's liberation. Because every time you master desire, you remind yourself that happiness was never in the thing itself. It was in the strength you carried all along. That is the discipline of desire, not chaining the body, but unchaining the soul. 6. Premeditatiom. Preparing for hardship. The Stoics had a practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Each morning, they would imagine the obstacles that might appear that day: betrayal, illness, insult, financial loss, even death. Marcus Aurelius wrote that by expecting trouble, he was never surprised when it arrived. Hardship lost its sting because he had already rehearsed it in his mind. This was not about living in fear, it was about building readiness. When you picture the storm before it comes, you secure your foundations. The sailor who trains in calm waters panics when waves rise. The sailor who imagines the storm survives it. Life, the Stoics knew, will always bring storms. Better to train for them now than to be broken later. In our world, we often pray for ease, but ease makes us fragile. When the job is lost, when the diagnosis comes, when the betrayal cuts deep, we collapse because we never prepared our souls. The Stoics flipped this mindset. Don't pray for things to be easy. Pray to be ready when they are not. Try this practice. Before your day begins, imagine one thing that could go wrong. Visualize it clearly, then remind yourself, I can face this. I have faced worse. I will endure. By preparing for hardship, you take away its power to break you. Instead, it becomes proof of your strength. That is the wisdom of premeditatio malorum. The disaster rehearsed is the disaster defanged. 7. The memento mori reminder. The Stoics carried with them a constant reminder. Memento mori, remember you must die. To modern ears, it can sound grim, but to them it was a source of clarity, not despair. Marcus Aurelius wrote often about the shortness of life, reminding himself that every conversation, every sunrise, every act could be his last. This wasn't to make him fearful, it was to make him present. Seneca argued that people waste life not because it is short, but because they squander it on things that don't matter. We act as if time is limitless, endlessly postponing what matters most: love, courage, gratitude, until tomorrow. But tomorrow is never promised. The clock is always ticking, whether we choose to hear it or not. Memento mori was not meant to depress the Stoics. It freed them. Death strips away illusions. Suddenly, petty arguments, shallow ambitions, and endless distractions fall silent. What remains are the essentials: living with integrity, loving those around you, and using each day as if it were borrowed. Try carrying this reminder with you. Look at your loved ones and imagine, just for a second, that this moment is the last. Taste your food as if you might never have another bite. Feel the weight of time not as a burden, but as a gift. Memento mori doesn't rob life of joy, it multiplies it. Because when you truly remember death, you finally learn how to live. 8. The role of journaling. For the Stoics, journaling was not a hobby, it was a discipline, a weapon against chaos. Marcus Aurelius never intended his meditations to be published. They were simply notes to himself, reminders to stay calm, to act justly, to endure what life threw at him. Each page was a conversation between his better self and his weaker impulses. Seneca wrote letters to friends that were really letters to his own soul, urging himself to let go of anger, to accept mortality, to live with simplicity. Epictetus told his students to write down their thoughts daily, because what you don't capture slips away, and what slips away cannot transform you. Today, we drown in noise, notifications, endless scrolling, thoughts colliding with no space to breathe. Journaling is the pause button. It slows the flood, forcing you to sort what matters from what doesn't. On paper, your fears shrink, your desires become clear, your goals take shape. You don't need eloquence. You don't need perfect grammar. All you need is honesty. Ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I fall short? What will I face tomorrow? These small reflections become a mirror, showing you not just who you are, but who you are becoming. The Stoics knew this truth. The unexamined mind is vulnerable, but the examined mind becomes unshakable. A journal is not ink on paper. It is the daily forge where resilience is made. 9. Turning pain into teacher. The Stoics never saw pain as an enemy. To them, pain was a messenger, a teacher with lessons hidden inside its sting. Epictetus, who lived much of his life with a crippled leg, reminded his students that suffering was unavoidable, but misery was optional. The body could be broken, but the mind could learn. Seneca wrote that adversity was like fire. It tests what is weak and refines what is strong. Without pain, we remain soft, fragile, unprepared. With it, we discover capacities we never imagined. Marcus Aurelius admitted that life would hurt him, but he insisted that every blow was raw material, something he could shape into wisdom. Patience, or courage. Think about the hardest moments in your own life. The breakup that shattered you, the job you lost, the illness you feared. At the time, the pain felt unbearable, but looking back, those moments shaped you more than comfort ever could. Pain carved lessons into your character, lessons no book could have taught. The Stoics urged us not to curse pain, but to interrogate it. What is this teaching me? How can I grow from this? When you shift your perspective, suffering loses its grip. Pain becomes less of a wound and more of a workshop. The truth is, none of us escape hardship. But if you let it, pain becomes the most honest mentor you will ever have. Its lessons are brutal, but they are also unforgettable. 10. Living by virtue, not emotion. For the Stoics, the compass of life was not emotion but virtue. They believed that true strength comes from anchoring yourself in 4 unshakable pillars: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Emotions rise and fall like storms, but virtue remains steady like the mountain. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that anger could cloud judgment, desire could lead him astray, and fear could paralyze action. But if he chose to act from virtue, seeking what was wise, just, brave, and balanced, no emotion could enslave him. Epictetus taught that while you cannot always control how you feel, you can always control how you respond. And that response should be guided by principle, not impulse. In our modern world, people often say, "Follow your heart," But the Stoics would say, train your heart, your emotions are real, but they are not rulers. Left unchecked, they drag you into regret. Guided by virtue, they can become fuel for greatness. Think about a moment of anger, you want to lash out. But justice demands restraint, or a moment of fear, you want to hide. But courage calls you forward. Each time you choose virtue over emotion, you prove that you are more than your impulses. You are free. Living by virtue does not numb life, it elevates it. It transforms fleeting moods into timeless strength. And in the Stoic way, it ensures that no matter what storms rage inside or outside, your actions will always honor the best within you. Outro. The Stoics never promised us an easy life. They promised us the strength to face a hard one. And now you've seen 10 of their most powerful secrets, ways to train your mind, harden your spirit, and walk through chaos without losing yourself. These are not just ancient exercises, they are survival skills for the modern world. But here's the truth, wisdom only grows when it's shared. If one of these lessons spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you care about, someone who might need a reminder of their own inner strength. Leave a comment below and tell me, which Stoic practice will you start using today? I'd love to hear your reflections. And if this message resonated, do me one more favor, hit that like button so more people can find this wisdom. Subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers and join a community of seekers who are choosing resilience over weakness, clarity over confusion, and virtue over chaos. Every week, we uncover more timeless insights to guide you through the storms of life. Life is short, time is precious. Don't wait to start living with strength and purpose. Carry these Stoic secrets with you, and remember, you are stronger than you think. So until next time, thank you for watching, thank you for thinking deeply, and welcome to the Legacy.